You're listening to All Things 3D, where we talk about the world of fabricating, designing, and capturing in the third dimension.
So I'm out here in Morro Bay, out on the Pacific. I'm kind of sailing in my little 3D Benjy tugboat. Yes, I know. It's pretty shabby for a special effect, but, you know, what can you expect? But now I'm going to cut to my other camera right now. So hi, everybody. I'm Mike.
Hey, Mike.
I'm out in my tuggy, and I've got my co-host here, Chris, and we've also got two special guests from the great country of Sweden, right?
Yeah.
Sorry for my bad accent. Okay. All right, so Chris, lead in with our first question.
All right. Hey, guys, welcome to the program.
Thanks.
These guys are going to tell us a little bit about themselves and what you guys do for a living. What do you guys do?
Hi, my name is Paulo, and thanks for having us. What we do, we actually specialize in providing 3D tools. So anything that has to do with 3D in some sense, we can provide, hopefully, we can provide a tool. It may be software or hardware. So from a software point of view, we provide CAD software, so anything for modeling. But we also provide a whole bunch of visualization software, which gives anyone organic capabilities. So it's basically, the technical term is polygon modelers. So we carry a lot of brands, Autodesk, Maxon, Rhino 3D. So we are a reseller company. For us, it became quite natural to also provide hardware. Many customers who buy software from us, they ask us questions: what hardware should I run this on? So apart from computers, we've taken the step into providing 3D scanners and 3D printers.
Awesome. Okay, and as you notice, I've got your website up, Paula, and so we can kind of go through that. So as mentioned, you do a lot of software. So I'm going to jump right into my second question. So from what I understand, CT are creative tools. Now you have, I noticed on your website it says AB. What does that mean?
That's a Swedish abbreviation for limited. We are a closed limited company.
Okay, so is that like LLC in the United States or something like that? Okay.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's pretty interesting. Now, from what I also understood, not only do you handle Sweden, but you obviously handle the other Scandinavian countries as well, right? Norway and a few others, is that what I understand?
Yeah. Okay. Exactly.
And you have more than one office, right? You have one that's in Stockholm, and then you have I guess another one. I had it up somewhere.
Yeah, it's a city called, it's a small town called Halmstad.
Here we go, Halmstad, and
and Stockholm.
So that's your headquarters, though, and then you have a shop in Stockholm.
That's right. We have a small office and a shop, a demo room in Stockholm, and Halmstad is the southwest of Sweden, which is very close to Denmark. So we're in two big industrial areas in Sweden.
Oh. Yeah, that would make sense. Okay, so my next question is, I noticed that you said that you started off as a visualization department of another company. So
that's right.
What was that other company? Not that I know a lot of the European special effects or visualization companies, but I'm assuming it was a fairly large company.
Yeah, it started as a business of three guys, two guys and myself in a room. And we started using 3D visualization software. So we actually did visualization jobs for any customer, mostly companies who would approach us and want to have an image instead of a nicely rendered image which would resemble a photography instead of just a CAD screen dump. And they would use these images for marketing purposes. So instead of building expensive prototypes, taking expensive product photos of it, and then marketing, they would approach us and get a nice rendering and get closer and faster to market. So that...
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so that that gave us some good experience in practically being 3D artists, and we made animations, renderings, and brochures. We worked generally in graphics. The company then started acquiring computers. By that meaning, so customers, as I mentioned before, ask us What computers do you use? Please remember that it was the 90s. It was at that time a computer really wasn't very powerful at all, so it was some tedious work. That brought us into hardware, and slowly we also started providing the software, because it became very natural that customers, they would actually tell us, why are your images so expensive? And because it takes time, you have to pay for the salary. So they asked us, what software do you use? And we started selling them the software instead. And that's how it evolved.
Okay, so one of the questions that I had was, did you possibly get out of visualization because, as I call them, the visualization mills in China, India, and Brazil, that seems to kind of, at least in California, some of the special effects firms kind of gone bankrupt because they can no longer compete with some of them less expensive. Have you found that to be the case in Europe, or you just decided that it was better to be a retail center than or a vendor than to do visualization work, or do you still do that as well?
we actually, one thing pushed the other. You're right on spot, because we started feeling that competition from other countries became quite fierce. Customers, they had to choose the cheaper option. And even though it's services, a service is not, you don't really know exactly what you're buying into. If you buy a service, you have to get some experience with the provider. But nevertheless, customers starting shopping around, and that made us think of if it wasn't better for us to become a vendor, to provide physical products. And a physical product, really a computer license, a license of a visualization software or a CAD software, is not a physical product, but it can be seen as a product. And apart from that, obviously the 3D printers, which have become a very popular product which we sell successfully.
Yeah, let's kind of.
So do you, as part of support, I know an important part of support, especially for the product vendors that we have here. I myself gain a lot from my vendors that provide teaching and kind of mentorship and that kind of thing. Is that another part of what you guys provide?
Oh yes, we're big time geeks. We're so nerds. It's amazing.
So you guys actually have lesson plans you can teach and learn the software through you guys as well.
Exactly.
So I think that's another part of the infrastructure that's kind of blossoming right now. I've seen a lot of I've got, oh, there you go. So right on your 3D for schools.
Yeah.
And so you guys actually teach the software you sell as well.
Exactly, and the software and 3D printing and 3D scanning as well. And this is very, very important to point out, because I think box moving alone won't. There's no really money in moving boxes and making a margin. Maybe for a distributor, but any reseller or vendor who has to have a good relationship with end customers, they need to be able to shake hands, look people in the eye, and say, okay, let's do some good business together.
Yeah.
And in our office in Halmstad, the headquarters, we have 2 very large dedicated training rooms with set up computers, big screens, so that anyone can come here and get trained in 3D printing or 3D modeling, visualization.
Right.
And we have all a very important thing. We have all the printers up and running, ready to go. So every single printer we sell, it's mounted on its demo table, and it's ready to print at any time. So we want to make it very clear for customers how a 3D printer works, because it's not clear. It's obviously that they have too many questions above their heads.
Right. And there's a lot of different models now and a lot of different technologies. It's easy to get lost in the oblivion of 3D software and 3D hardware. It really is.
Sure, exactly.
Well, let me segue into your hardware now. What year was it? 2004. Actually, you said, and maybe I won't jump into the question, but right after it. So what actually got you into 3D fabrication? I know that you said that you have a history of, gosh, how many years? 20 years in 3D fabrication.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, did you just see that there was a growing market, and you also identify that you started out with some of the more of the commercial printers, and you've kind of backed away from that? So I'm kind of asking a little question here. So if you want to go ahead and take it.
Sure. My first experience in 3D printing was in the 90s. I used to work in the CAD software on an Amiga. An Amiga was my preferred computer at that time.
I designed hardware for the Commodore Amiga.
Really?
A product called Perfect Vision and Perfect Sound. You may have heard of them.
Of course, of course. We'll have to have another hangout, I see. But what I used to run this software called XCAD, and I did all my 2D drawings I did on a plotter, like a physical XY plotter. They're not around anymore because now you have matrix systems. But it was a machine with a physical arm. It could grab a pen and literally paint or draw on paper. And there was this eccentric little knife which I could actually put instead of a pen, so it actually cut out paper. So I had this script for my CAD software which would slice the object in layers. So I would tediously slice every, print or actually cut out on paper, adhesive paper, every single layer, and I would then glue them on top. As you may know the MCOR.
Or LOM printing, laminate object manufacturing.
Laminate object. That's what I did by hand. It took days and days and days. At the end, I had actually a physical object, and I would caress it like a pet because it took so much time. But that was my very first experience of additive manufacturing. What I saw on screen, what I had designed on screen in 3D, I could actually physically touch. Then I became operator of one of the earliest Stratasys machines and at some customers, and I was an operator of a wax 3D printer as well. And then this was at the time when I worked at the Visualisation company as a consultant. Since I think it was back in 2008, Z Corporation or Z Corporation, I don't know, the powder manufacturer, they got in touch with us and asked if we wanted to sell their printers, and we said yes, why not? We have a vast community of 3D users as customers. Why not try to sell them 3D printers? Right. And we did that. We did that for a few years. We also took in VisionTech, a German resin-based technology. And they actually did a joint venture with Z Corporation. They made something called a Z Builder, which didn't really exist for many years because it was on the last leg of Z Corporation before they were bought by 3D Systems. So by default, we also were for a couple of years resellers of 3D Systems machines. But all in all, adding all the numbers, it's in my opinion the only instances to really earn good money on the big machines. I don't want to call the small machines non-professional. I call the big machines or like expensive machines, because many of our customers do professional work on small machines which are very affordable. But the big machines, so to say, it's only the material, the polymer manufacturers at the factories and the machine manufacturers themselves, I think, who grab the biggest part of the profit. The distribution and reselling is mostly logistics for them, and I don't see any well-known 3D printer vendor of big machines becoming, driving really fast cars. If you know what I mean. There's still money to be made, but it's not being made in an obvious way as anyone might assume.
Right.
Yeah.
So we decided
some of the intangible software or what do you want to call it, software services that there really isn't a tangible product to be delivered, so it's just basically time. They're the ones driving the sports car. And we're in the wrong business, I guess.
Exactly. And so back in 2014, I think it was, or 13, and the end of 13, we decided to stop selling or putting effort into the large machines and focus totally on the smaller ones. And by then we started providing a few RepRap kits, almost homemade RepRap kits, and we got in touch with MakerBot, and we asked kindly to become a reseller, and we got a big yes, and we started selling the Thing-O-Matic at the time when the Thing-O-Matic
was popular.
When it was popular.
Now I'm going to jump back to your website here, and you have a list of all the printers that you support: 3D Systems, 3D Factory. Some of these I'm not familiar with. I'm assuming that they're maybe European, or maybe I'm just not knowledgeable enough.
They're European.
But some of them do come out there. FlashForge, which I think is, what is it, a Chinese or Taiwanese-based company.
Yeah.
And then you've got MakerBot, which we're familiar with. Ultimaker, we're also familiar with. I actually had their Ultimaker too. Neither of us have 3D system printers. One of the things that we've heard, and I don't know necessarily experienced, that the support, you talked about logistics, the support from the larger companies, 3D systems seems to be lacking. Did you experience that as well, or do they seem to concentrate more their efforts in the European market?
I think I hear similar stories. To tell you the truth, the 3D systems machines, they sell once in a while, but they're not a big seller. I have difficult going to numbers because I have to keep things from a business point of view in certain areas. But regardless if we sell many or not, they're not actually being seen in vast quantities out there. And I think a good way of measuring is how many images and videos you find on social media of people actually actively sharing their experience with a new machine, instead of just finding promotional videos made by the manufacturer or by the resellers.
Does that include their cube systems as well? At least specification-wise, their Cube Pro seems like a really nice unit. Do you find that as well, or?
The Cube Pro it's an old bits and bytes machine, a bits for bytes machine. It's basically the same machine, revamped a little bit, and it's got 3 print heads. I would define it as a very muscular machine. It's really huge, heavy, and the mechanics are very sturdy.
When I was at CES, I had an opportunity to see it, and it did look pretty overwhelming. Well, for that type of machine.
Exactly.
So, what is your most popular machine, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, of course. The historically, MakerBot have been the big driver of, and that the peak, so to say, was also from a technology point of view the 4th generation, the Replicator 2 and the Replicator 2X were the big sellers. And MakerBot has
Replicator 2.
Yeah. And the whole idea of building a quite reliable 3D printer, FFF 3D printer, with a very good, strong cooling fan for PLA, is the recipe for a good PLA print. So if you cool the stuff really nicely, and if the machine mechanically is sturdy, you will get good prints if the slicer is doing the right thing. And that's I don't think that's something unique for MakerBot as a provider of technology, but it was well known within RepRap movement. But they grabbed that ball and they ran with it with the Replicator 2, and they did quite successfully, at least in Scandinavia.
What about their 5th? Okay, go ahead. You were going to talk about the Gen 5.
Yeah, I was just sorry. The Gen 5 machines, they are based obviously on the same principle, but they if I continue with the ball analogy, they dropped it. They actually, I think it is somewhat symptomatic from the big manufacturers, the big players, that maybe they have too much going on at the same time. So because there are so many aspects of a success story you have to address. You have to address the quality and reliability of the product. It doesn't matter how wonderful a Kickstarter machine is. Let's say if you look at Kickstarter, you find really amazing designs. And as an engineer myself, I say, my God, if that thing works, that would be a really nice machine. And even if it is, if they have 10 working machines in their cellar, that will never become a company if they cannot deliver 500 a week to start with. So numbers, productivity, they need to have a successful 3D printer model has to be backed up by a very powerful apparatus for manufacturing it on a reliable quality. And then there are other, for instance, the end user factor, the end user experience, and also the social aspects of making the user feel comfortable, as feel that they are taken care of. I think problems are okay as long as people feel that they're okay, they're being taken care of. And the big players, I think, are actually there are too many holes in that. It's not working 100%, at least as far as we see it. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, let's stay on the Gen 5 for a moment. One of the things that I have read about, and in the RepRap community, obviously, there's a little bit of Schadenfreude going on in that community. But they went with a replaceable, is it just, I think it's both the extruder and the hot end, and they seem to have had a lot of problems with that. There's another company, XYZ Printing, out of China, that's done something similar, and I don't really know if we're going to have the same issues there. From your experience as a retail and also as an engineer, do you think it's a viable market to provide replaceable heads? Chris, I know that your Stratasys has a replaceable head, but what makes it different, let's say, in the consumer market versus a commercial printer, and do you think it's still viable, or do you think things should be locked down?
I think the replaceable extruder print head is amazing. It's one of the best things you can actually do, but you have to make it work.
Right.
You have to make it reliable, because it's there's some things with the designs out there which when making the thing portable or detachable, they by design they affected certain criteria which affects the reliability of 3D printing, and these things weren't taken into account with. And combine that with the deadlines, with trade shows, we have to release. That CAD design is final now. Let's make it will work. That kind of
mentality.
Really, yeah, and from a company point of view, if there's so many pressure points, I really, if there's anything wrong to be described about the situation, actually I feel a bit sorry for almost every single instance. Which made that situation not optimal, because there maybe designers who wanted to do more and could not. There's money which ran out. Maybe there's fabrication.
We talk about that balance a lot, where because there is the age-old saying, haste makes waste. I think that was Ben Franklin, and as an engineer, you're working towards something that's good enough to make it to market, and and it seems like in the corporate environments, in the big companies, you have all this time sensitivity pressure, because they're trying to optimize profit for the company. Their motives are totally different than the engineering motives, And so you have the engineers that are like, well, we kind of need a little bit of extra time to work out all the kinks, and then you've got corporate going, no, we need this out by the trade show. CES is coming up. We got to deliver a wow, so we have our buzz back for our company, and it's this constant struggle. And I think a lot of times that really can really hurt a company when their product is not perfect, or at least 9.5 out of 10. Especially in this highly competitive field where you've got all these emerging companies coming to compete. I see it as a kind of a challenge, and I think that like the kind of the traditional corporate model of breathe down the engineers' necks and get them to pump out imperfect designs is I don't think it's really leading to a long-term prosperity for these companies.
No, the thing is,
let me use.
Sure. So go ahead, please.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say that seems like a good point to segue into, the RepRap community. This is where a lot of the consumer, and we don't want to use the word consumer, but the lower cost 3D printers derive from. You had a lot of people. In fact, you still do. The RepRap community is extremely strong. We've had quite a few people on who've been involved in that. As you probably know, Eric from Ultimaker is really strong in the RepRap community, and with their Ultimaker 2, there's obviously some roots in the public domain functionality. As Chris alluded to, are we seeing a new structure, not only in 3D printing, but in a lot of different things, where you're getting a smaller group together who can move or drive something forward and get crowdfunded in order to support themselves without having to go to a larger group of people who may demand certain time frames to get things done? Or are we seeing the crowdfunding kind of extending people's as you mentioned, not necessarily getting the a great design up, but don't have the rest of the oomph in order to provide something that is reliable. So if you look on both sides, you can see a lot of it. So I'll give you an opportunity to kind of talk about the RepRap community. How did that really help the 3D print industry from a European perspective, and then kind of talk about the crowdfunding as well, really quick, and then we'll move on into 3D Benjy and get Daniel's opinion on it.
Sure. Well, to answer your question, to the RepRap community, I think many people behind me can only say one thing. It's a big, big thank you. It's amazing how when people get together and make sure that information and technology is open, how much things can happen. It's surely amazing. And I myself have been in touch with 3D printing for so many years. I could never, ever have dreamt of. I dreamt of it, but I could never have believed it, that I would, be able to own a 3D printer. Not, regardless of the price. I am so amazed. I think here in our demo room in Halmstad, we have about some 25-ish different 3D printer models all up, ready to go. And in Stockholm, where Daniel works, I think you've got some 8 or 10 models.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to be around that, and I know for sure that wouldn't have happened if the RepRap community.
Yeah, or not only own one, but be able to build one, or at least know how they work. You know, that to me is just unbelievable part of the RepRap thing. Is the information is there to learn about them.
Exactly. As long as these wonderful people, get along, which they apparently do, and continue creating something, really without any criteria. It's an organic thing. Someone gets a good idea. If that person managed to convince other people to come on and let's try this out, we'll have a really nice organic technology growth. So I'm really very happy about look at what the firmware can do. It's really great. It's and it's a driving force. And you mentioned the European models on our webpage. You found there's some really nice machines from the Czech Republic, the 3D factory ones. They are like
I've noticed that too.
Yeah, they are darn it, where's the word? Stridsvagn. Daniel, vad säger man stridsvagn?
Like a tank, yeah.
Like a tank. They're like I'm sorry, I lost the word there.
Bulletproof.
Bulletproof.
I was surprised with that. In fact, a lot of the mechanical designers actually came from that area.
Yeah. There was a
Sadly, the Soviet Union kind of stole a lot of that, but luckily that's kind of dispersed.
There was a reason why the Czech Republic was so popular amongst a certain kind of industry, because they had the tech guys and machinery there. So in a certain sense, it's really cool to see some nice machines from Czech Republic, from Poland. There was some very good from Poland, and obviously also the Netherlands. There's some
obviously the Ultimaker.
Of course, and I like the fact that they're keeping the open source criteria still open, literally. So it's
I think it was the week before last we covered sadly I don't remember their name, but from Poland, and they have a very unique printer that I kind of call it like a Swiss knife. You can exchange the heads. You can either go with a hot end for plastic extrusion, or you can put a Dremel tool on it. Do you remember the name of that? Do you carry that? Are you familiar with it?
I carry it. It's a Smorf. We have that as well. Just on the Z, Smorf there, and it's a Swiss Army knife. It's if I was 14 years old again, I would cut lawn everyone's. I would send out papers, do whatever. I would just become a slave to be able to afford a Smorf, because it's such you can do so much with it. It's a bit of a RepRap machine, but it's really fun.
No, but they made it so that you could exchange parts, make it do what you want. In fact, what was one of the things that I noticed? It also had a laser cutter. And if you throw all that in, it's still a lot cheaper than buying all those products separately. So I think it's kind of fun. And I'll keep following.
And they're clever. They've got a clever software to handle all that. So it's some good. They went some good thinking into the machine, actually. It's touching on.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Touching on your Kickstarter-like projects. I think it's interesting to see what's going to happen when people can go to a crowdsourcing website instead of going to the bank. That's literally what happens. I think the phenomenon still has some teething problems, specifically when the product they promise to deliver is a physically manufactured product. If it's about recording a nice music album or something, that's something anyone can do with talent, obviously. But when you have to have a lot of money in your bank, take into account what can go wrong, logistics and support and customer care, it's a much bigger machinery than most people actually believe it is. So when people start to add the numbers the correct way, I think crowdsourcing could be an interesting alternative to bring products to market.
Well, and it already seems to be showing that there is, well, good example is, even though I swore that I would not mention it, but I guess I'm going to, the Apple Watch, which has got a lot of hoopla. I'm not a fan of it. I have actually a Sony smartwatch, and I'm very proud of it. But
Pebble.
That's the point I was going to make. The Pebble, which was funded by a crowdfunding, and it is still popular. In fact, they went back out and they very quickly, I think in 1 week, received the resources. I think it was like $2 million. I don't know. It was quite a bit, of maybe even $20 million in order to build their next model. So it really worked out for them. All right, we're down to about the last 10 minutes. So let's kind of concentrate now on 3D Benjy, which if you can see me here, I'm hanging out in my little tugboat, my 3D Benjy. I don't know how I came about it, but I said, this thing looks really fun. As I've mentioned before, most of these, as you said, you print out those cubes. There's some others out there, or there's a series of models that you can download and print in order to look at certain calibration, but there really wasn't anything that would do everything all together. And until your little product came along, and I really think it's fun. Sorry, funny. Maybe it's humorous. It is humorous, I guess. But I thought I'd jump right into your page, 3D Benjy, and you did bring on Daniel, who I guess is in your Stockholm store, to kind of talk about it. So are you the person behind this little thing, this cute little tugboat? And let's kind of get the origins of where did this thing come from? I saw one picture. Go ahead.
So I joined Creative Tools this beginning of the year as a creative designer / hardware developer. One of the first things that we spoke about doing was this little boat to find a test piece that we have so many printers. We do so many test prints, it's just crazy. We wanted something that we could compare between the different printers, as well as find the pitfalls of different printers and softwares and to fix them. So this is actually the first ever printed Benjy.
Oh, that's the first one, huh?
Yeah, and you see that it has a round hole in the front.
Oh, instead of a square.
Yeah. So
I guess
later
there's
we
a story
decided
behind that.
Yeah, we decided to make it square so you could get a little bridging there as well. So I mean, it's not designed to be the ultimate print test, but you get a lot of different features in this little boat to
run your calipers onto to see how accurate you are.
Yeah, exactly. And it needed to be something recognizable and fun to print, and we all have millions of these little rectangular pieces, the boxes, 20 bucks. But this is way more fun, and it takes about an hour to print.
And it's not that fast to print, and the scale is nice. I'm going to jump right over to your PDF. So there's a PDF that you can download from your website that gives you all the instructions on what to look for. And if you can see it behind me here, and I'll expand it a little bit, there we go. So let's kind of go from the left to the right. So you kind of just describe what you were looking at in creating the 3D Benjy. I kind of went over this a little bit myself, but what jumps out at you that you did a little bit differently with this? Daniel?
Right, so the hull, we got the idea from the tree frog on Thingiverse. I'm sure you've created it at some point.
I have to just point out, it's made by Morena P. She's a lovely lady, and she actually put that tree frog. Exactly. Just want to give the source.
So, and the stomach on the tree frog, it really points out, if you have a bad working PLA fan. So that's one of the ideas we got. We had to, make a steep angle of some kind to detect, the fan problem. So.
Okay. Very cool, very cool. And they snap together too. So how did you come up with the design to make one fit into each other? How did you make them symmetrical? Was that just trial and error? Or was it
by accident?
Yeah, that's by accident.
And we heard so many descriptions about that. That's why we call it
accidents are the best.
Yeah, and it's called the yin-yang position. The official thing is a yin-yang thing.
Oh yeah, and then there you go, and then 3D Benjy was born. At that moment, you had to have known that, hey, we've got something here. When you took two of them and put them together, and you didn't mean it for it to happen, as soon as that happened, you were probably like, all right, we got to give this thing its own website now.
Yeah,
exactly. The procreating.
That's awesome. That's really
So what are some other features? I noticed one that's been important to me. I have a Maker Grand 2, and probably the more difficult thing with that is actually calibrating the bed, making the bed level, because it uses that seesaw approach. And so it's always been an issue. So I thought, well, let's see how good I've calibrated it. Because normally my first layer, I'm not too concerned, because I just use mine mainly for prototyping. So when I decided to print mine, sure enough, I could read, and I'll drop to, well, I guess I can, let's see, we'll go to this camera here. You can see it and read it. Yay!
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. So I was proud of myself that I leveled my bed properly. But you know what's other? I just kind of like running it across things and making little sound. Feel like I'm 5 years old again. Okay, enough of that.
Chris, that was. I'm just to point out one of the criteria which Daniel is the father of 3D Benjy. He's a guy as a designer. He's very good at CAD. It's I think it's in your blood in some way. But his criteria was to design a torture test.
I want that.
Yeah, you're gonna have it.
Well,
we're gonna tell you more about the future of this website.
Okay.
But
yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. All right. Exactly. So, anything else you want to emphasize on your?
Yeah, he was talking. He was telling us something.
Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to move on. Go ahead. Go ahead, Paula. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. so in basic terms, on the left you have the hull, which actually we call it internally the incredible hull, because it resembles the belly of the tree frog, and it really clearly shows you what's wrong with the cooling. What does the typical thing called curling when you 3D print overhangs. The next image is a symmetry. So 3D Benjy is symmetrical, which means if you look at it straight on, you can very easily see differences. You can take a straight photo from each side and mirror them, and then overlap them with some kind of software, and you can very clearly see what's going wrong with the left and left. And this can actually show you the difference between a multi-directional cooling fan or a unidirectional cooling fan. So most 3D printers have only one direction from which the cool air cools the PLA plastic, if you're printing in PLA. So symmetry is good to have. The STL file, Daniel designed it in Fusion 360, and we exported it at a really ridiculous high resolution STL file, and that is to guarantee that no one will suffer from or look at jaggedness and think it's a problem with their printer. It must also always be. We've got some flat surfaces there, which are really good for looking at top layers. When the software slicer is, if you're using an FFF printer, a top layers is a central thing. And then comes the 3D Benjy nameplate. If anyone of you guys owns a really high resolution 3D printer of any kind,
stereolithography, PolyJet,
exactly,
one of those.
So that's, if you can read clearly hashtag 3D Benjy, you've got a nice machine. Probably not the cheapest one, but you got a nice machine. The chimney.
Also, there's if you have a printer, a high resolution printer, there's like a secret Easter egg thing
That's
on
right.
it. I won't tell you what it
Oh.
is though, but you're
Yeah,
gonna have to find it by yourself.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, there's an
that's-
Easter egg in this thing?
Yeah. We think of everything we Swedes. And we listen to ABBA and eat meatballs. By the way, have you heard about IKEA? Oh, yes, you have.
Oh yeah, of
Oh,
course.
very
Oh my God, what a Swedish invention that is.
Oh, yeah.
Going on, I'm sorry for ranting here. The chimney is a cylindrical shape, which is perfect for putting your calipers on and measuring the how round things get. If your bells aren't correctly tensioned, this is what you will see it on the chimney. And I would actually recommend anyone who wants to get into measuring, get digital calipers are good, but get one with a clock. You know, with a looks
Analog.
like a with a visor. And then there's what else do we have? We have overhang, as Daniel mentioned. It's the front window and the inner the ceiling of the I don't know the boat names in English. Boat well, anyway, you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have some small and round holes, both horizontally and vertically, and also skew the boat for the hole for the fishing rod at the rear is not vertical or horizontal. And we got the lettering on the bottom, which is a very clear indication of how much you're squishing the first layer. Because if you're not doing it, if it's too close to the build plate, you won't be able to read the letters. If it's too far away.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so those are just some of the features, or that's most of the primary features that that you can see on and you can check it out right on your website at 3dbenchy.com. That's 3dbenchy.com. And and then you've even got a measure and calibrate page that shows exactly what those dimensions should be. So when you take your calipers, you can see exactly how accurate your 3D printer is going. And so, is there a? I guess lastly, we kind of want to close on where is 3D Benjy going? Is that right, Mike?
That's correct. So, Paula, I'll go ahead and I'm going to measure some things while you're talking. Let's see.
Yeah. So I guess for
doing.
me, like one of my favorite places to hang out and kind of lurk is the subreddit on Reddit, which is Fix My Print. So it's a subreddit called Fix My Print. People take their calibration prints. And then they submit them, and the 3D print community on Reddit kind of helps them figure out and diagnose their problems. So they submit, okay, here's my material, and I think that the 3D Benjy print is a perfect print to kind of take into this forum because it covers so many more bases than a calibration cube or like the frog print or and I think a lot of people out there would be really interested in finding out about this and being able to diagnose their printer's problems more easily, kind of with your calibration print, the little 3D Benjy.
Exactly. That's the whole purpose. Yeah.
Well, mine isn't quite up to snuff, but it's close. 31.07. So
that's good. That's really good.
It's good. Could be a little bit better, but I was a little surprised. I thought it would be worse than that.
Mike, is that a professional printer you have?
It's a MakerGram 2 that I have modified a lot. I have a full metal extruder on it now with a full metal, not a full metal hot end, but a newer hot end. I do plan to go to a full metal, but yes. I'm a little surprised. You were talking about the lettering on the back. I'll go back to my camera. It also came out. And this is on a standard FFF, so I've been very happy with it. Plus, I'm also using Polymax. I don't know if you've heard of that material, and I've been a very happy camper with that. It's about the best PLA. It's very strong, about as strong as ABS. In fact, they say it's about as strong. It has some flexibility, but I really love it because it has all the advantages of PLA with the strength of ABS. So,
I think touching on materials, I think that's something that Daniel and I would like to mention, and you will see so much more coming up on 3dbenchie.com. But Daniel, what's your point of what's coming? What do you think is coming for Benjy?
Well, first off, we're gonna try to get the failed prints for the different features and specify how to fix them to help out.
Exactly.
That'll be excellent.
Yeah, we're gonna post some failed prints of different kinds.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, this is a nice one. I like this one. It's a bit not so sturdy.
That's an important one because a lot of people go through that. A lot of times that's just extruder issues.
This is a typical retraction problem. On the site we will create failures, and we will post them and analyze them in depth, so that people can really understand what they should do to make their prints better. We're not saying that. Yeah, and it's more of defining. You can see 3dbenchie.com as your 3D print doctor, and people will be able to upload their images, and we will take them and we'll give them an analysis. And one specific thing, and this is why Daniel was the guy who had this task, who got this task, to design a part with as much interesting features, not all, it's impossible, but as much possible in one single small model to achieve consistency. So if the one word can be remembered here is consistency. So we will post the actual run files, the G-code files and X3D files for every single 3D printer model that we own or can get hold of, and these files will be able to be downloaded with our settings. So people will see, okay, this G-code file I can run on a RepRap, and that should yield this nice print, and then they can actually download the file and print it and see if their result compares to our image, and we fill that with lots of data. Yeah, and that's only one thing.
One final note, do you have a forum? So if people want to come out to 3D Benjy, like you said, share an image, but also talk about it with others in the community. Do you have a community-type forum, or is that coming?
It's coming. It's coming. We're actually discussing what kind of forum, if it's a classic forum, or if we will use some kind of social media forum to integrate in social media. But there will be possibilities to talk to each other at 3dbenchie.com or through that. We promise that.
Well,
awesome.
I don't know what your opinions are of Google, but I like Google Forums. So if you want to do something really quick, that's always a nice place. A lot of people use that.
Google Groups are quite easy to install, and you reach a lot of people.
Yep.
So,
okay, Chris.
Well, thanks so much for coming on our program and telling us all about 3D Benjy. I'm gonna go get me some steamboats are rolling on my Lulzbot machines here in the office, and we'll give you the last word here. Anything you want to say to our audience, and tell us where to go to find you, maybe if they want to get in touch to buy a machine or some software.
They can always reach us at creativetools.se, so that's SE for Sweden, if they have any questions. And naturally, we will try to answer as many questions we can. Our base customers are normally Scandinavia and Northern Europe, but we welcome anyone to get in touch with us. And regarding this fun little boat thing, you can always surf to 3dbenchie.com and follow us on social media. And
also, don't forget to take photos of your prints and post them on social media, and use the tag 3dbenchie. 3dbenchie for others to find.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much again for coming on the program, and
thanks for having us.
We'll see our users or our listeners later on this week, Wednesday, with our Roundtable podcast on all things 3D.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.